Now, the last study we looked at was good news because it was showing that people who appeared to be reinfected after they'd cleared the virus, after they'd stopped being sick, were not in fact reinfected, that it was a false positive. It was just dead strands of the virus being detected, that it wasn't a genuine reinfection. So that's really good news. And I think today's study is equally good news because today's study gives evidence for an intervention that is really simple, really cheap, but might be as effective as the lockdown that's cost all these untold billions of dollars and pounds. So, and it's wearing masks, of course. So the question is to mask or not to mask. And the answer is to mask. Now, what converted me to this? I was converted to this in March because I wasn't convinced. To tell you the truth, before March, I didn't fully understand it. Because I was aware that if I wear a mask, that's not going to protect me very effectively unless it's a very tight-fitting, proper PPE grade mask that'll filter out particulates down to 3 microns in diameter. So I thought it's not really going to protect me, so don't really see much point in wearing masks. But I'd missed the point altogether. The point is, wearing a mask in public is not to protect me, it's to protect you from me in case I'm infected. Because I could be infected for 3 days before I develop clinical features. Well, there's something like a 50% chance I could be infected and be completely asymptomatic, but all the time infecting you, and you might get sick and die, even though I don't get sick at all. That's one of the strange things about this virus. So this is the paper that convinced me from the Journal of the American Medical Association. And it says that when you sneeze, that can go for 7 to 8 meters through the air. That's 23 to 26 feet. When you cough, the droplets from your air can go 5 to 6 meters. That's 19 feet. Or 2 meters or 7 feet, just by breathing and talking. So as I'm talking now, all these droplets are coming out. And in the droplets, the viral particles are in the droplets. Because if I'm infected, the viral particles are down in my respiratory passages. And they'll get into the droplets that I'm breathing out. All sorts of different sized droplets. The big droplets will drop out and contaminate surfaces. So someone else could be infected through touching a contaminated surface and then touching their face. And the smaller droplets can be suspended in the air for minutes. And indeed, some of the smaller droplets will dry out and the virus can be suspended in the air for 2 or 3 hours perhaps. This is really quite significant. So the key thing is that everyone needs to wear masks who is potentially infected. And of course, that's all of us unless we know we've had it. Now, this study, the new study I've got to contribute today, Hong Kong. Rates of transmission through respiratory droplets or airborne particles dropped up to 75% using masks. And I'll show you this study in a minute. It's quite an ingenious study. Public mask wearing effectiveness is huge, potentially huge, according to this doctor, who's the microbiological doctor in Hong Kong University. So this was a good study. Transmission can be reduced by 50%, especially when masks are worn by infected people. But of course, we don't know who's infected. And universal mask wearing, it needs to be 80% of people wear masks, can significantly flatten the curve, which is all we're doing with this lockdown. It's flattening the curve, which is what we want to do. So we don't overwhelm our health services while we wait for a vaccine. So this is a remarkably profound study. And the other thing that convinced me about this is if you take countries like South Korea, they always wear masks. And look at the story of their epidemic. It went down really quickly. Countries like Taiwan, public always wear masks. It's publicly normal to wear masks. I used to work in Thailand and Cambodia. And anytime someone's got a cold or even not feeling well, they'll wear a mask. It's just part of the culture. So seeing people wear masks in those countries is not abnormal. Japan as well. It's just normal that people wear masks quite often. So for them to wear masks was not a big jump. And I believe that was reflected in their transmission rates. Now, what was this new ingenious study? Well, it was related to hamsters. So as you see in this excellent diagram, what we have here is, this is a big fan. So that's blowing air in this direction. So these are fans here blowing air. Now here, as you see, these are hamsters. Now these hamsters are in red, indicating that these hamsters are infected with the virus. And these hamsters in black are not infected. These were healthy. So these were infected with COVID-19 because hamsters can get it as well, apparently. So they were infected. These ones weren't. So the fan, when it was blowing that way, so it wasn't that the individual hamsters had masks on. Of course not. That would be silly. The cage was masked. So it's a very good analogy. So what that meant was these hamsters here were breathing out infected viral particles in their droplets, but they were being stopped by this mask which was over the front of the cage. And what that meant was, even after they let this experiment run for a week, only 15% of the hamsters in the cage downwind from this cage with the infected hamsters, only 15% of those got infected. So only 15% of those were infected. 15% of the hamsters. So very low rate of infection in that cage. And they were also found, even if the hamsters were infected, the 15% of hamsters that were infected, they were found to have a very low viral load. So if you like, they weren't infected very badly. They had a light infection because they were protected from the viruses. Now, the next experiments they ran, again, you have the fan here blowing the air here. And again, this is the cage with the infected hamsters. And so these infected hamsters were blowing out these viral particles in their droplets, different sized droplets from a micron to quite big droplets. And these were easily blowing out of this cage because this cage was not masked. And then when it got to there, this mask was stopping some of the viral particles, but not all of them. And what they found was, in that cage, 33% of the hamsters in here got infected. So it was only 15% when the infected hamsters were wearing a mask, but it was 33% when it was the healthy hamsters trying to protect themselves. It's quite a clever experiment, isn't it? So that was really quite impressive. Now, when they had infected hamsters in that cage and non-infected hamsters in that cage, and again the air blowing through, what they found in this situation was, because there was nothing to stop it, then more viral particles went through and infected more hamsters. And what they found was that 66% of the hamsters in this cage became infected. So we see there's over a 50% difference, a 50% protection between an infected person, or in this case infected hamsters wearing a mask, and no one wearing a mask. So why, oh why is it that in countries like the UK, mask wearing is very, very uncommon? Because it can reduce the transmission of the virus by 50%, which is almost as effective as a lockdown. It's going to greatly reduce the R0. So why aren't we doing this? And this has got implications as well for wearing masks, but it's also got implications because of the way this virus travels in the air for airflow through buildings. Air being wafted through a ducted air system from one office to another. Because what they did in Thailand is they wore masks and they opened the windows and they turned off the central heating. So we need to wear masks in public places and open the windows to reduce the viral load. Because again, and this was particularly interesting, we said that these hamsters here, only 15% were infected, but the ones that were infected had a lower viral load. Here 33% were infected, but they had a lower viral load, so they weren't badly infected. But here, where there's no mask wearing at all, because in that one the infected hamsters were protecting themselves, the non-infected hamsters were protecting themselves with a mask, protecting the non-infected hamsters. But here, when there's no mask wearing at all, not only did 60% of these hamsters get the infection, they also had much higher viral loads. They had worse infections. And I think the analogy between an infected person wearing a mask, even though that person might be pre-symptomatic or asymptomatic, and the hamsters, is a good one. So if everyone wore masks, that would be great. But the key thing is, infected people need to wear masks. And because we don't know who are the infected people, then everyone has to wear masks. And that will probably give us a bit of extra protection as well, as we see here. So if everyone wore masks, we get the full benefit of this situation, and we get the full benefit of this situation, and none of the adverse effects of this situation. Now, to be effective, the team estimate that masks need to be worn by 80% of the population. Now, you don't need to wear it in the house. This is when we go into public places. And we're not talking about well-ventilated areas outside either. We're talking about work, offices, workshops potentially, certainly supermarkets, certainly public transport, where the distances between people are small. Because remember how far the virus can go through the air, as Linda's research showed. Where are we? There we go. So 7 or 8 meters with a sneeze, 5 to 6 meters with a cough, 2 meters with breathing or talking, maybe slightly over 2 meters. So any time that you are closer to a person than 2 meters, even if it's only for a short period of time, you should be wearing a mask. Let me say that again. In my view, any time you are closer to someone who is not a member of your household than 2 meters, you might be infected, so you should be wearing a mask. Any situation. And that could potentially reduce the transmission of this virus by 50%. And along with testing, tracing, isolating, this is another way out of lockdown. And it costs nothing, because we're not talking about clever masks. We're just talking about masks that take away the momentum of the airflow. It doesn't have to be a 3 micrometer mask to protect us. It just needs to stop the airflow. So homemade masks are going to be equally good at this. But 80% of people need to do it. Now, if we don't do this, when we release the lockdown, we can keep this infection under control with good testing, tracing and treating to some extent, but we can also have this massive 50% extra benefit. So would you like to reduce transmission of this virus by 50%, bang, just like that? Yeah? Well, this study indicates you could do that if everyone wore masks in public places. How simple does it get? How cheap does it get? But it's got to be 80% of people. And to me, that means it has to be mandated, because you'll get people that won't do it otherwise. Now, if you're watching in the United States or the UK, this is harder, or indeed in Europe, because we don't wear this. It's not part of our culture. But they're doing it in Italy and Spain. So we can do it in the UK and all over the United States. In fact, some states in the United States are doing it quite well already. So simple, dirt cheap. And the places that have had good control, even so, like South Korea had good control by universal mask wearing in public places, testing, tracing, isolating. That's all. They haven't got any drugs, they haven't got any vaccine. That's just what they did. And of course, if I'm wearing a mask in a public place, then the viruses I'm breathing out are not going to go onto the public surfaces. They're going to go onto the inside of my mask and dribble down onto my shirt, which is fine because I can take that home and wash it. I'm not breathing out onto public surfaces where you can come along, touch it and infect yourself. So it's keeping public surfaces cleaner. So if everyone wore masks and all these public surfaces were cleaned very regularly, as indeed they are, public surfaces are being cleaned regularly, combined with the good hand hygiene, even without any clever treatments, this is going to reduce transmission. And it's going to be an important way that we learn to live with this virus. So why don't we do it? We need to do it. And we need to do it yesterday. Because it's cheap and it will reduce the transmission of this virus if there's any validity to this data at all. And I believe there is. It all makes perfect scientific, microbiological and fluid dynamic sense. It just makes sense. And not only does it make sense, it's also supported by the empirical experience from Taiwan, Hong Kong, South Korea, China, where they have done this, Thailand. And to be fair, especially if we take countries like South Korea and Taiwan, I think it's fair to say they've had better ability, a better track record of controlling this virus than certain other countries. such as the United Kingdom or the United States. So I think that is the way to go. Now, the last thing on this video is to show you some important people. Let's go. People that watch the videos, without which it would be pointless. Free homemade masks by Dylan Yan in Ontario. Excellent. Free homemade masks. Isn't that brilliant? A brilliant way of encouraging people to wear masks. Excellent. This is Ken and Mary of Wisconsin. Oh look, they're wearing masks as well. Isn't that good? Excellent. They are protecting each other. Although they live in the same household, I think, but they're protecting other people around about them. And they watch my videos, so double credit to both of you. Thank you. This is Kent in Ohio. It's a bit dark, but he is wearing a mask. Don't need to wear one in the home, but he's practicing for outside. This is Kevin. Kevin, I don't know where you are, sorry, but you are wearing a mask. Also good. Excellent. So thank you, Kevin. Can't remember where you are. Apologies. Isn't it strange everyone in this video seems to be wearing masks? This is Kim in Vancouver, I believe, British Columbia. No. Anyway, British Columbia. Skip the van bit. I'm not quite sure what I meant. Anyway, Kim is in British Columbia wearing a mask. Let's just have a look. It looks like quite a nice one. Oh yes, classy homemade mask. That is what we want. Kim, you are presenting a good example to the world. Thank you. This is Kim in Sweden, also family wearing masks. So well done, Kim in Sweden. I assume this is Kim here. Hard to tell, but thank you. Another Kim in Virginia. And as coincidence would have it, also sporting a very appropriate mask. Violins. Listen people, let your imagination run wild. The key thing is it's a physical barrier taking the momentum out of the airflow. These things are good enough. They're fine. I'm a Singaporean watching your videos in Kent. Lee, thank you for watching in Kent. Good to know you're watching. And I put this one on just to prove you don't have to wearing a mask to get onto the videos. I'm sure she wears one outside on all public places all the time. So thank you for sending that picture in. This is Lucy and Reese. Now they are athletes, and this picture I believe was taken in Lanzarote, one of the islands. Is it one of the Canary Islands, I think? But glad to see they're wearing masks in public, and of course they've got his and hers, and they match. So excellent. Why not make matching masks for you and your loved ones? Now this is Margaret in Queensland again. Now she snuck in yesterday, but I'm glad to see she's copied, or someone's copied our saying, 2 meters distance determines our existence. So we need a rhyme that says, and wearing a mask is a good idea as well. If anyone there is a poet, do make me up a rhyme for masks. In fact, that's a good idea. If you think of a rhyme for masks, like something like wearing a mask stops me infecting you if I'm infected, therefore I'm being kind, and it's also reducing the propagation of this pandemic, therefore it's one heck of a good idea. But reduce it to a very small catchy poem like 2 meters distance determines our existence. If you just if you do it, nothing to do, that'd be good. I'd find it useful. Don't want that one, want that one. Yeah. A friend of mine thought of this. It wasn't me. She just thought of it. So simple. This is now. I'm going to say this wrong. It's like Patricia, but it's not, because it's Polish, and my knowledge of Polish names is appalling. So my apologies. But I do know you're watching in South Korea. So all the way from Poland to South Korea. And that looks like a homemade mask as well. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, it looks like a homemade mask. And will be very effective in public places. And of course the Koreans realise the importance and do this much more than we do in this country. Now this is Rendu from Tongo. Right, okay. These videos are challenging my geography, I'm afraid. But glad to see Rendu's got a mask there that he wears in public places. And watches the videos, which is doubly good. Well done, Rendu. And this is a mass production facility, Rochelle, where she makes lots and lots of masks. Let's go in and have a look. You see, this is all we need. We just need to break up the momentum of the air. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. And that will protect others when we are infected. And use your imagination and make nice masks. It's fine. Let your imagination flow. This is Ruth in Singapore, who also wears a mask outside because Singaporeans are very strict on that kind of thing. So glad to know you are watching in Singapore, Ruth. This is Ruth. I'm not sure if this is the same Ruth. No, this is the same Ruth. I'm pretty sure that Ruth is those hands making this mask. So again, excellent mask production. So Ruth, thank you for making masks.